Hello, my name is Wild Lee of Wild Lee Tarot, and this is your Moonday message for the last week of October, beginning October 26th, 2020, as we are moving towards Halloween, towards Samhain, the Day of the Dead, and we are also almost to election time. So it's a very potent week this week for the collective here in North America. And the card that came forward, 3 cards came forward actually to support the collective this week. The main one, the 2 of Wands. So the 2s, they always speak about choice, making a choice, making a clear decision. Are we going to go left or are we going to go right? Are we going to believe this or are we not going to believe this? So this week, there's this very potent energy of choice. That's the word that I'm hearing, choice. We actively get to choose, even though so much is outside of our control. Always. The weather is outside of our control. Other people's behavior is outside of our control. There's very, very little that we actually have control over in a very pure way in this life, except our own internal landscape and our own decision making, the way that we choose how to take what's happening to us in life and what we choose to do with it. This is what the 2 of Wands speaks to, in particular to our mental faculties and into the way in which we take in intuition and information. And so what I'm feeling is that we're getting into a crunch time in this week as we're heading up to the election, as we are tiptoeing into winter. This week is going to have the potentiality of a sense of urgency, and we get to choose if we're going to take that ride or not. And so the 2 cards that came to support, which I feel are the 2 directions that we can choose for ourselves this week. The first one, which came up last week as well, the King of Cups. I don't know if you can see this. I apologize for doing this at night. My day just got really full, but I'm here for you and it's still Monday. So, King of Cups. This card is the archetype. The archetypes of the kings are, what do we put out into the world? What do we put forward into the world? It's a very external archetype. How do we create our container outside of ourselves? And this one in particular speaks to the emotional body. So how do we contain our feelings? How do we discern whom we should share our feelings with and who we shouldn't? And I love this card because that cup, those are his emotions. That's his swirling ball of feelings. And he chooses to keep it a little bit closer and really look at it, really process it before he shares it with the world. This is the opposite of what I'm seeing happening a lot, in which people are feeling and experiencing deep discomfort, and instead of sitting with that and coming to terms with it and figuring out what their actual truth is in the uncomfortable situation, they are projecting and throwing their discomfort around them, either at their close people or at strangers online. But there is a lot of lack of personal accountability and responsibility for one's reactivity happening in the field right now. So one direction we can choose through this 2 of Wands is to choose the archetype of the King of Cups, in which we're going to hold ourselves high and hold ourselves accountable, recognizing that the way we feel, while there might be external circumstances that trigger us, that create a reaction within us, what we then do with that sensation is our responsibility. And so if we are taking in negativity, do we want to continue to output negativity? Or do we need to change our boundaries? Do we need to discontinue certain relationships? It begs the questions of What are we allowing into our field that is getting us so triggered? So that's one direction. And the second direction that we can go, which is what is in the air, that crunchiness, that pushiness, we've got the Eight of Wands. And this card, as you can see, is not a comfortable card. You know, there's so many things up in the air. We don't really know where we're going. It gives the feeling of confusion, grasping. There isn't a lot of space for critical thinking in this card. When we're taking in so much and there's so many things that we have to get a hold of, we can't really take our time and get really clear on what we're sensing and thinking and feeling. It's got such urgency to it. And that's really what I'm sensing in the collective right now, is that there is literally so many things that are crumbling. Our paradigm is really being activated right now. There are just so many unknowns as we're moving forward, and so many dissatisfied people. There is such a need and desire for a change and a shift, but it's coming slowly, right? It's really an uncomfortable place to be, and we can choose to sit with that discomfort and sort of hold ourselves, be with it, feel it, and say, yeah, this is really, really uncomfortable. Or we can distract ourselves from our internal discomfort and start looking outward. Oh my gosh, the rainforest is burning. Oh my gosh, that politician did that terrible thing. Oh my gosh, the COVID numbers are this. There's just so much that we can get plugged into that creates this frenetic, unbalanced, unharmonized energy within us. Now, I'm not saying that we don't educate ourselves. I'm not saying that those things aren't happening. I'm inviting in the big both and, right? Yes, all of those things are happening. Yes, all of those things are real. Yes, we do individually and collectively need to be doing our work to fight racism, to save the planet, to be inclusive. There are so many ways in which we do need to evolve and invest time in that evolution. And we're animals, we're mammals. Technology hasn't even been around for an entire generation. We have not yet learned how to integrate the influx of information and the amount of technology that is involved in our lives. And it can wreak havoc on the individual nervous system if we do not provide ourselves adequate self-care and spaciousness from that onslaught of information, right? And it is a choice. It is a choice. Nobody forces us to sit on Facebook for hours. Nobody forces us to get on and learn every little thing about every evil doing that is happening. We get to choose. We get to choose what we allow in and give ourselves the amount of time that we need to process it and integrate it. And what I'm sensing here is that it's up to us this week individually to really make those choices and not allow ourselves to get so frenetic, so distracted, so overwhelmed and anxious that we then begin projecting and throwing our discomfort at those around us. And the stone that came forward is rose quartz. This is the stone of love. It's the stone of softness. It's the stone of the high heart chakra. It's the stone of compassion and tenderness. And I'm really feeling this like a sweet, sweet reminder that we are just these finite animal bodies. We are infinite cosmic energy that has inhabited and embodied in these finite, tender beings that can really only handle so much stress, that are designed to keep us safe in life or death situations and to be constantly monitoring our surroundings to let us know whether or not we are in fact safe. And now we add that to what's happening in our world, in the collective, and we're seeing it all in this screen, and we are feeling it all in every conversation that we have, if we're even able to have conversations outside of our immediate family. It's a lot to hold, and we're sort of ramping up to this timeline of an election where a lot of people have a lot of different ideas on what's going to happen. It's stress. It's stressful. And so this week, I invite you wholeheartedly to choose how much you want to step into that, knowing that you can't really change all that much as a single being, and sticking with what you're called to do, right? Like walking that nuanced line between being an active member and taking good care of this tender body that you have. The animal that came to support this week is Grouse. And the medicine of Grouse is the spiral dance. And when I think of that, it just reminds me that everything moves in a spiral. Everything moves in a circle. This is not the first time that the world has had political unrest. It is not the first time that this country has had political unrest. All of these things have moved through in cycles, and every time the cycle moves through, things shift. Some things get better, some things get worse. It's always uncomfortable for the people who are moving through it. And then it becomes history, and we get to learn about it in future generations. Just remembering that we're just in our part of this spiral dance. And what is the most important are the decisions that we make individually that begin to ripple out and affect the collective. So vote, but then also, where are you investing your money? Are you investing in things that support people of color, in indigenous folks? Are you investing money in your communities and the native peoples that live there? Are you keeping a finger on the pulse of the water keepers in your area? There are lots of things that we can do outside of this grand election that actually make a lot more positive impact and change than this one point in time. And then the word that came forward to meditate on this week is this word obedience. And as myself personally, I pulled that, and immediately the rebel in me was like, I'm not obedient to anything. But that's not true. We all hold obedience to something, some value system, something that we align ourselves with, and then we choose to follow those doctrines, whether it's doing yoga once a day or drinking that cup of coffee in the morning. We have habits and routines that we are obedient to. But as I feel this word, it's also bringing up the question, what else am I obedient to that maybe my conscious mind is not fully aware of? That is the homework for us this week, to really feel into this word obedience and make some clear choices. Make some choices. What does hold my obedience? What holds my allegiance? Is it people? Is it compassion? Is it power? Is it fear? I invite you to feel in to that word with me. Thank you so much for taking the time to take in this Moonday message. I hope that it serves you well and that you have everything you need. If you vibed with this, if you really felt something that spoke to you, please like it, give a comment, please share with a friend. It really helps me to keep my small business going. And if you need any support during these coming weeks as we are moving into and through the death season, I am available. You can check out the link in my bio. Thanks so much.